Mike Walter. Mike is an author, owner of an entertainment company, and I like to call Mike the bridge that gaps the generations of all DJs.
I love that, Alex. Thank you.
And so I'm going to ask you how your day was, but I'm going to ask you in your book, 10 Ways to Have a Great Day. One of your ways is to have sex. So how was your day?
Didn't check that one off the box, unfortunately, and I'm not going to have a chance because Kelly has an overnight client tonight, so she'll be leaving shortly for an overnight. So I'll work on that tomorrow, though.
Yeah, me as well. So we're going to get started. We're going to do a tequila tasting today. I want to talk a little bit about Mike's endeavors, Mike's life, and we're going to hit the different expressions of tequila. We're going to start off with the Blancos, and I started. Number one, I
didn't even count. How many did you send me?
I sent 7. We're officially going to try 6, maybe number 7. We'll see about that. So number 1.
So I'm looking for Blanco.
Yeah, you're looking for Patron. They should all be
Patron Blanco.
And I chose Patron as the first one because it's kind of like your baseline. I feel like everybody's had Patron.
So you are educating me on tequila tonight. I am nowhere near a tequila expert. So, and I love what'd you say? Bourbon in the winter, tequila in the summer?
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. I like that philosophy. So we're basically transitioning now from
a little bit heavier in the winter for the cold here in the Northeast. And
am I drinking this rocks or no rocks?
So I have a Glencairn snifter thing here, and I'm just going to do it on one small cube. I like a little bit of cube.
Okay. I brought ice cubes down because I didn't know. I didn't want to drop one in and have you go, no ice cubes.
The one tequila is actually a $250 tequila. The last one we'll be doing. So you can choose.
You sent me a tasting of a $250 tequila?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably got $3 or $4 in there for you, Mike.
Wow. That's still pretty good.
Yeah, man.
So the Patron.
Yep. So just a tiny little bit here. I think everybody knows what Patron tastes like.
Cheers.
Cheers, brother. So my goal here is I do have an agenda. I feel like you are all over the place as far as the DJ media goes. And you talk a lot about your business. You talk a lot about education. You talk a lot about your books. But I don't really know a lot about Mike as the person. I feel like that hasn't reached the public as much as it should.
That's cool. How far back do you want to go?
So I'm going to start here. So I have an active imagination. And when I think of Mike Walter, Mike is a little bit of a shit stirrer on Facebook. So I think that Mike, plans out a couple of Facebook posts, sits back, pours himself a drink, maybe tequila, maybe bourbon, whatever it may be, an old fashioned. And he's like, let's watch these motherfuckers blow this shit up.
It's not as calculated. This is very good, by the way. I don't think I've ever had Patron. This is very good. It's really not as calculated as that, but you're right in the fact that I usually put something out there and then don't revisit it till later. But usually that's just because I'm super busy. My times to post is usually in the morning and then around lunchtime. And so the morning I'm sitting there reading my morning newspapers and I'll see an article or something and I'll go, oh, I've got an interesting, like you just said, shit stirring kind of post, and I'll post it. And it's not like I sit there diabolically going, let's see all this shit. But at that point I go to work and I usually don't look at Facebook again for another couple of hours. And a lot of times, Alex, I'll see you have 250 comments on the, and I go, I'm not reading them all. It's too much work. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's as calculated as you made it seem, but it's definitely not. I'm not like I said this the other day on one of them. I don't try to direct the conversation. Like some people will post something and then 2 comments in, they're trying to like change everybody's mind, and that's not my goal. I love the debate, or call it the argument, call it the fight, call it the shit stirring, whatever it is. I enjoy that part of social media.
And I thoroughly enjoy it too. I'm just glad I'm the one that doesn't have to post it. So,
but you stay out of the fray mostly, right? I don't see you I don't know your political leanings. So you've done a fairly good job of, I think, staying out of the fray.
Yeah. I do
You're
that.
more of a sideline watcher.
I don't mind saying it here. I just don't like, I don't want to spend my time arguing and projecting my thoughts. And I don't think you really do either.
No, I really don't. I spend a lot less time on my post than a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Honestly, I craft it, I put it out there. And sometimes, like I said, you have 250 comments and there are 4 of them, and there's 4 people making all those kinds. So they're arguing back and forth. Those people have way more time than I do.
And I think some of those people, if they choose to listen to this podcast, maybe they could take some time and work on their own profession instead of, but hey, if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. So that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So tell me how you got your start. What was your first DJ experience?
So I grew up in Queens, New York, and I was starting in high school. I was a big bowler, it's sad because I haven't bowled in years and I haven't done it seriously. But for a while, I was hanging around this one bowling alley, and I think I was in 3 different leagues, and then also bowling. I would just go on a whatever random night. And they started this thing while I was bowling there called Friday Night Madness, which a lot of bowling alleys, I think, do nowadays or have done. Basically, Friday night starting at 10 o'clock until 2 a.m, people came in and they paid one flat fee. I think it was like $10. You could bowl for nonstop for 4 hours, and they had a DJ. And the DJ that they hired didn't want to speak on the microphone. So the owner of the bowling alley came to me and he said, look, I know you're a bit of a ham and you're an outgoing person. Do you want to be, I don't even think he called it MC. I don't know what he called it, but he said, do you want to be my microphone guy? And I was like, sure. And this is like, again, mid 80s. I think he started me at $30 for the night, which is $7.50, but all the beer you could drink. So that was pretty cool. And I'll never forget, you know how bowling alleys have the microphone on like a gooseneck behind the counter? So for the first month, that's where I was speaking. But this thing took off wildly. I mean, to the point where it was like a club. There was a line out the door and we were turning people away. And the owner said to me, he goes, Mike, everyone's loving it. They're loving the music. They're loving your shtick on the microphone. What if I got you a cordless microphone? And I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. And that, Alex, set me free. When I went from the gooseneck behind the desk to being able to literally run up and down the alleys, because one of the things we did for Friday Night Madness was we put one red pin in every rack. And if that came up as your head pin and then you bowled a strike, you got like a free game or a free pitcher of beer or something like that. So I was literally running. Okay, we got a red pin on aisle 20. Let's see who's going to roll it. Oh, Alex going to roll it. Let's see how he does. Oh, he left the 10 pin up. We got another red pin down on lane 8. And I loved it. It was the best introduction to emceeing and ad-libbing and everything. And the DJ, like I said, he didn't want to speak, but he would hand me slips of paper every once in a while that say, hey, the next song is going out to this couple, or dedicate the next song. So that was my introduction to emceeing. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the sound of my own voice. And let's be honest, I fell in love with the attention you get from being that guy.
Of course. Now, I know at Elite Entertainment, you guys work in 2-person teams. There's a DJ and an MC. Was the experience what molded that?
Well, no, the next experience was the company I got started with. So I started at a mobile DJ company called Star DJs, and they use that same 2-person package mentality where the main guy was your MC and then the backup person, not even your DJ, but more of an assistant. And so that's really the model that most companies in New Jersey go by. And so when I left Star and was building Elite, that's basically the model we followed.
So Elite was built from the ground up by you. It wasn't an acquisition or anything?
No, I guess probably sort of an acquisition. So there was a guy named Eric Taylor who I had met at Star. He left Star to open up Elite Entertainment, but really was never going to get Elite past just him. And things were going bad at Star. I could see that they were going out of business. They had made some really bad decisions. So I basically jumped ship to join Eric at Elite and be his partner. And then we kind of took off from there. And then about 3 or 4 years later, I bought him out and became the sole owner. And then it really took off from there, because I'll never forget, I went into debt to buy Eric out, and that got me scared. Like, I had never been in debt. I mean, I had bought a house, I had a mortgage, but that's different. And I just remember like, oh shit, now it's time to hustle. Like I'm in debt. I got to pay off this note. And that's when I really rolled up my sleeves and started recruiting and building the company. And we went from like $250,000 to $1 million in sales in like a couple of years because I was hustling.
And this was still in the 90s.
That's in the 90s. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to have one more.
Cost me my first marriage because I was just working my ass off. But yeah, I mean that, people refer to a lot of pop culture things that happened in the 90s, like top movies and things like that. And like Saturday Night Live, like I'm a big fat Saturday Night Live fan, but when I watch a repeat from the 90s, I don't recognize it at all because that was my decade of just like working your ass off,
Yeah. And
I think every successful person has one decade like that where they just hustled and they missed everything else in life except building their brand. And I don't want to make it sound like I've skated since then, but that's when I built what I have today.
Of course. Yeah. You build it and then it becomes and you're still putting into it. So I want to talk a little bit about your personal life and if it's okay, go into your first marriage, because my vision of you, again, I've got an active imagination. I remember the pictures of Mike Walter with long hair. And I just picture you going from the bowling alley scene to, the bar scene, to the club scene, to the wedding scene with this long hair, this like gorgeous locks. You're tall, you're handsome, and you're in good shape. Just kind of in the world, man.
I'll take half of that as a compliment, but the rest is a little bit exaggeration, but thank you very much.
So when you're going that hard professionally and building a brand and building a business and building something that so many people in the country have attempted to replicate, and partially by design with your books, like, do you have time for the wife at the time?
Listen, that was a big challenge in my first marriage. I married a lawyer, so she was super busy and I was super busy building Elite. And, it just, the marriage, didn't come to complete fruition because we were both super busy. And listen, I'm happy where I am now, so I have no regrets. And fortunately, my first wife is too. I've stayed in touch enough with my first wife to know she's remarried, she's happy. So we're both in good and probably better places. But I look back on the 90s and I go, yeah, one of the things, I should not have gotten married. I wasn't even in a position to be in a relationship because I was just hustling so hard.
Well, and I didn't know that at the time. I know Louis C.K. has been canceled, but he's got a great quote about divorce saying there's no such thing as bad divorce. You get divorced for a reason. So I definitely understand that, even though some of the circumstances may be ugly.
There's also a joke about, do you know why divorce is so expensive? Because it's worth it.
All good things.
But I'm happy to say my first divorce was not expensive at all. Like I said, my ex-wife was a lawyer. She had her own career. I had my own career. Neither one of us got vindictive. We didn't have kids, so there was no child support hearings and things like that. So, which is probably one of the reasons why when I bump into my ex-wife, which I have from time to time, there's no animosity. There's no knives in the back and everything else because neither one of us went after the other one hard,
Good to hear.
Yeah.
And so you're missing out on the 90s. I remember very strongly about your hate for the grunge era and the I don't care, the lackadaisical era there. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I don't know if I hate the grunge era, but as a DJ, I hated it because to me, it just took all the fun out of music. I grew up in the 80s. That's my decade. And I think the music from the 80s is awesome. Even the heavy metal, the rock sound from the 80s, the Bon Jovi and Poison and bands like that, they were out to have a good time. And then the grunge scene comes along and it sucked all the fun and the life out of music. Now, artistically, I get it. There's room for that and I can appreciate it. But as a DJ, even the colors. I mean, look at what people wore in the 80s, the bright colors, the neons. And then, Kurt Cobain comes along with his ripped sweater, this dark green, puke colored sweater. And that was now all of a sudden the rage. And I never related to that fashion or music.
So you weren't walking around your grandfather's cardigan or anything like that?
No. I did not. I skipped the flannel era. I wasn't into any of that.
How about leather pants?
Leather pants I've tried, actually. There are photos of me floating around out there in leather pants. I think leather pants are cool. Listen, I'm in my 50s now. There's no place for leather pants once you hit a certain age. But yeah, I mean, I don't think leather pants fit. I don't think Kurt Cobain ever wore leather pants, did he? That's not the image I see him in.
I cannot verify or deny that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me more about kind of your 20s, I guess. Were you in your 20s? I mean, that was like,
well, I got started DJing when I was 22. So yeah, I mean, I kicked around. I wasted like 3 years in college. I went to such a strict high school that I remember the first day in college when they were like, we're not going to take attendance and we don't care if you're here or not. And I was like, party, and I didn't have the discipline at that age to focus on college. I regret it because I love education and I love knowledge, and I wish I had stuck with it. But yeah, I mean, I basically wasted 3 years, dropping classes and getting 4 credits this semester and 6 credits the next semester, and just kind of skating until I found the mobile DJing thing, which I found in my young 20s. And then I moved out to Jersey and I loved it. I that first decade DJing, to me, it was just the greatest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Any huge songs that kind of still stick with you from that era?
Well, I was DJing when the electric slide blew up, and I will never forget that era, because it was really the first line dance. There were other audience participation songs prior to that. We used to do the YMCA. I don't know if do you even know a song called Hands Up? Does that resonate with you?
No, the oldest one that I know of was the Bunny Hop, which was done by some guy outside of Philadelphia. But
yeah, that's actually prior to. But Hands Up was this Caribbean. It was like YMCA because it was all hands up, baby, hands up, give me your heart, give me your. Anyway, there was like a whole dance routine that went to it. But when the electric slide broke on the scene, I remember as a DJ going, "Oh, this is something very cool and new. Like, I can now get out there and teach a dance and lead a dance," and that, to me, it was the opening of everything. And then the Macarena followed, and then the Cha-Cha Slide and Cupid Shuffle and Wobble. And we've had a number of different attempts through the years at coming up with that next big thing as far as a line dance. Some hit, some don't. But yeah, I mean, that to me was one of the first songs that I was like, oh, this is going to rock at every single gig.
And I wanted to ask you, I kind of skipped over this. Where did you go to college?
Queens College.
Okay. And
same place Jerry Seinfeld graduated from. So he and I have that in common.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I've had the pleasure of seeing him live many times. He's great.
I actually learned to ride a motorcycle because I went to Queens College and the parking was horrendous at Queens College. But I noticed guys with motorcycles could squeeze their bikes between parked cars. And that was my motivation to learn how to ride.
And do you still ride?
I don't own a bike. I mainly sold it. I sold my last bike about 20 years ago now, because my mom used to worry to death about me riding. Every time I talk to my mom, have you sold that bike? Please sell the bike. I don't want you riding. Please don't ride. So I finally just sold the bike so I could make my mom happy. I miss it though. I do miss do you know George Whitehouse?
I do.
He's a good friend of mine, and he is an avid rider, and he's constantly putting up pictures of him. And, if it's a beautiful day, he goes for 100-mile or a 200-mile ride. And I do kind of miss the freedom of it. I think I'll probably someday get another bike and get back on it.
Very cool. And you're an avid runner as well.
Yeah, not as much as I used to be. I went through a marathon phase for a while where I was doing multiple marathons a year, and I loved it. But my body just couldn't take the wear and tear of 40 to 50 miles a week. But yeah, I mean, it's my fitness of choice. If my body could handle all the miles, I would still be a marathon runner, because it's the one thing I really, really enjoy doing.
Now, does Kelly run with you, or is that just
No, absolutely not. She's a yoga. Kelly loves her yoga. She's actually a yoga instructor. Years ago, she made an attempt at getting into running. I'll never forget this. She was training. We trained for a 5-mile race together. And at the start line, she said, "Now look, I want you to motivate me. I want to do great in this race. I want you to push me." So That's what she said to me. So mile 3, she's starting to hit a wall. And I'm like, come on, honey, you can do this. You got this. There's only 2 miles left. And about 5 minutes of that, she started crying. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make you cry. So yeah, it's just 2 different styles of fitness. Yoga is all about, pushing yourself, but not too hard and not to too much of a limit. Whereas running, especially if you're trying to run for any kind of speed or long distance, is about pushing through the pain. And it's just, that's not her style.
So how's the Patron? Let's do what would you like to try the second one?
I did. I liked it. Yeah, let's try another one.
All right. So we're going to go to the second Blanco. And when it comes to Blancos, these are the tequilas that I prefer to mix with when it comes to making like margaritas or palomas. Very good mixers. This is Siempre Azul. And the gentleman who is the distiller of this tequila owns a restaurant in Philadelphia called Tequila's. But his tequilas are very, very highly regarded. And
I think I've been there, actually.
Fantastic if you have. Yeah.
That sounds familiar. I'm only doing half of these pours. Should I do the whole thing? I want to get through. I want to get through this podcast and not sound like a bumble.
Kind of rough.
So I'm going to do half pours.
Yeah, half is good.
Yeah, good.
So I'm just going to pour that. So while I'm pouring this, if you have the free mouth, I guess you could say, tell me how you met Kelly, because being a busy DJ and busy professional owning a business,
I actually hear Kelly coming down the steps. Are you coming to say goodbye, hon? Okay. Love you. I'll see you in the morning. Okay. Kelly and I have a very unique story. I DJ'd Kelly's first wedding.
Okay.
I was the DJ at her wedding in 1997, I think it was, 96 or 97. And when people hear that, they think scandal. They think, oh my God, what were you hitting on your brides and blah, blah, blah. It is the least scandalous story other than the fact that I DJ'd her wedding. I saw her again at her cousin's wedding like a year later. I was with my first wife at the time. My first wife used to work with me. So I saw Kelly and her husband. Hey, how you doing? Great to see you. Great to see you. I think I bumped into her again one other time, and she was still married. I was still married. So, great to see you again. And then a number of years after that, her mom called the office to book a holiday party. And as soon as she said, yeah, this is Elaine O'Neill. And I said, oh, yeah, Kelly's mom. Oh, okay. I said, how are Kelly and Chris doing? And she said, not so good. They're getting a divorce. And it probably didn't happen exactly like this, but in my memory, I went, oh, really? and because I was divorced at the time, or going through my divorce. And I was super excited to hear it, because I always thought Kelly was an extremely attractive woman, very personable. We got along the few times we saw each other. So from there, I kind of sought her out and asked her out on a first safe lunch date. And it kind of went from there.
That's amazing. So how much time was there in between the first call, her first wedding, and the call from her mother?
I guess 5 years. Yeah, 5 years.
Knowing you like I know you and how often you DJ, you must have had some, it's a tough thing to say, but she struck a chord with you.
She stuck out for me. Yes, Kelly definitely stuck out for me. I thought she was extremely attractive. And like I said, the few times we bumped into each other, personable, we got along, everything else. But I'm also not, I would never, what's the line? Never rub another man's rhubarb. I would never flirt with anybody or hit on somebody who's married. So to me, when we bumped into each other, it was, oh, hi, nice to meet you. It wasn't until I heard she's getting a divorce that my ears perked up, and I was like, okay. And so am I. So that works out perfect,
So when was this, the first lunch date?
I remember it was right after 9/11. Yeah, because that whole year was so dark. So that was late 2001. And I remember we had the lunch date, and then we had like one other date right before, during the holidays of 2001. And I remember waking up on New Year's Day thinking it's going to be a new year, because 2001 was so dark and miserable with 9/11 and everything else. And I remember thinking, oh, you've just met a great woman. She seems to like you. And maybe this is a turning point in my personal, darkness, which I felt that way.
And you guys got married in 2000.
We got married 8 years. We're celebrating our 8th anniversary. We lived together for quite a while. Not that we were anti-marriage, but without having kids, neither one of us felt like the urgency to get married. And then after a while, it was like, we own a house together. We have 2 dogs. Like, well, let's just do this. And we both love a big party. So it was a great excuse to throw like a kick-ass party, you know?
So who was the DJ at your wedding then?
I know a lot of DJs find this to be a controversial statement. I had a band at my wedding.
Okay. I mean, I don't think that's a bad choice at all. I mean, you're going to be with DJs, and it might even seem like work for you.
You know, there's a number of different reasons why we chose a band. First of all, when Kelly and I do go out, it's most often to see live music. We very rarely, unless it's a friend of mine spinning somewhere, we very rarely go to a club to see a DJ. Secondly, I knew it was going to be a room full of DJs, and whoever was spinning for that crowd was going to have a hard time. Whereas a band, you know, this is not something any of us do. So they were much more impressive. And like you said, none of us would be working. Like when I hear a DJ spinning, even if I'm trying not to focus on them, I hear a mix like, oh shit, I got to steal that mix. That was great. Or, hey, that was a cool thing to say. But with a band, I didn't have that feeling all night long. I felt like I was a groom, I was off, and I was there to celebrate. I wasn't working at all.
And to that, I say cheers. What do you think of the Siambra Azul?
I like this very much. Yeah. I think I prefer the Patron, but I do like this.
Cool. So all of the tequilas I've chosen for you, with the exception of number 7, which is a joke. If you'd see on your sheet, it's actually Costco brand tequila.
Oh, you got me a Costco brand. Did you send me a cheat sheet?
I did. Yeah. So there's a little tasting guide.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't open that.
Oh, that's all good. So, yeah, the Costco brand is the only brand that has additives in it. With the tequila bylaws in Mexico, tequilas are allowed to put in up to 1% of additives that aren't 100% pure blue agave.
Okay.
Those additives are usually sweeteners, and they use them to correct batches to give uniformity. So I get it. So when they first made that law, the additives weren't that strong. Now with artificial sweeteners, additives can be pretty strong to manipulate tastes. So
got it.
All the tequilas here, if you want to get nerdy, are 100% blue agave with no additives.
I don't think it's nerdy at all. I think it's cool knowledge. I have done like whiskey tasting tours and Scotch tasting tours, and obviously beer. And I find the process of creating this stuff to be really interesting. And I also always wonder, how do we, meaning mankind, know to do this? Like, how did we know to do this? Who was the first person that, and I'm sure it was an accident, created tequila and then went, oh, this shit's pretty good. Let's work on this and let's improve this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know the history behind tequila, but that to me is fascinating how we got here, you know?
I mean, I'm even more simplistic than that. I wonder how we thought to milk a cow.
You know what, Alex, anything like that. You're right. How did we, and not only how do we think to milk a cow, but who thought, oh, I can drink that, or I'll try to drink that, or, you know what I mean? That's not just for the calf to drink, but I'll drink it. Yeah. I mean, anything like that. How did we know to grind wheat or grain to create wheat? I don't know how we as human beings came up with all that knowledge.
It's pretty wild. So I want to get your authorship here, getting back onto the Mike Walter track. What was your first book?
My first book is still unpublished to this date. I wrote a novel, and showing how busy I was in the 90s, I wrote a novel in the 90s about the nightclub scene. And it's about a guy who owns a club called The Edge, and that's the name of the book, The Edge. And through a series of machinations, he loses the club. And but yeah, I thought it was good. I had an agent for it, and my agent was convinced it was going to sell. And I've got an envelope in the other room with about 8 or 9 rejection letters from some of the top publishing firms. Simon and Schuster turned it down. Little Brown turned it down. So, I mean, I guess it's a small accomplishment that I got that far with the project, but I never did sell it. So that was my first attempt at writing. And then the first book that I self-published is called Running Your Multi-Op, which is basically pretty self-explanatory. It's everything I can share with the reader about growing a business, DJ business.
And that's what I mentioned earlier as the, your Elite Entertainment was the formula for so many DJ companies, because my first job, other than being a DJ in 2005, I was handed a mobile DJ company to be a general manager of. I knew nothing about business beyond DJing. And I don't know when that book came out. I feel like I might have gotten around 2009, 2010. Was that
so? You were handed my book, in other words.
I was not handed your book. I bought your book.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. You bought it. Okay. Well, thank you. I was really lucky, Alex, and I've made this point many, many times in my career. I got started with an established DJ company. They were a pretty big multi-op in North Jersey. And like I said, they fizzled out. The owners were young and they made some mistakes. They got themselves into debt. But before that, prior to that, they basically taught me so much about what I eventually took to Elite Entertainment to become successful. So whatever blueprint you might have followed or whatever blueprint other people have followed through my book, a lot of that came from the two guys at Star DJs. And that's John Murphy and Rick Aldi, who I to this day tip my cap to and give a lot of credit to, because they helped me tremendously get my start.
I know we're going to have a handful of DJs listening to this, to them out there. I just want to say knowledge is power. Mike's book is great. Gave me a lot of nuggets in terms of hiring, a lot of hiring and training and music nuggets. I'll definitely say
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know there's a DJ's Vault out there, and that's amazing in and of itself, especially if you're launching, but definitely both things have their merits.
Thank you, Alex.
So going back to the first book, the novel, how did that failure affect you? Were you too busy to let it get you down, or does failure not really affect you that much?
That's a great question. I actually remember taking the call from my agent who said, yeah, we just got our last rejection letter. So I'm going to put this on the shelf. I don't think it's going to sell, which was about a month after the conversation I had with him, where he was like, I want to sign you. I think I can sell this. I think I can find a place for it. I'd like to not think that it rocked my world, but I'll say this: I haven't written a novel since. I've attempted, I've had some ideas and I've gotten started, but I haven't been able to complete a novel since. So I don't know whether that initial rejection and failure sucked out my creative juices from writing a novel. I don't know. I've always chalked it up to, I'm just too busy. When someday when I retire or semi-retire, I'll have enough time to sit around and create a novel and come up with a novel, because I know I can write. And I don't say that to be cocky. Some people can write, some people can't. Some people literally, when you sit them down at a laptop or at a typewriter, they can talk, but they can't write. And I can do both. I can bullshit onto the page. So I know I can do that, but my problem is I just haven't had another story arc that I've come up with that I can put together.
Understood. Yeah. And so in the era of self-publishing, and that's, I assume, the route you've taken with your other books, especially with such a strong DJ network, has the thought ever crossed your mind to potentially let that see the light of day?
It has, actually. I've dusted it off and I've reread it, and I'm proud of it in some spots. In some spots, I wrote it when I was probably 24, 25. So some spots I'm a little embarrassed by. So I don't think I would ever publish what's now on the page, but I think I would probably rewrite it and give it a little bit more of first of all, I'd have to give him a more modern feel as far as the music goes. And also technology. Unless I wanted to set it in the 90s, which would have its challenges, there's no cell phones in my book. There's no internet in my book, because those things didn't exist back then. So I would have to either modernize it or purposefully place it in the 90s,
Yeah. Feel that. So what was your second book then?
Well, Running Your Multi-Op. That, and then, I wrote a mini book. I don't know if you've seen it, but that 10 things, well, you referenced it earlier, 10 things you can do to have a great day.
Yeah. It's on my my nightstand.
Which was really just a seminar that I put together that Alan Berg saw me do the seminar. And he said, you know what, Mike, that would make a great little book. And he showed me, because he had this publisher that prints these tiny little, the size of it is, but it's perfect for that format. And I printed a bunch of them up, and I sold a good number of them at $5 a pop. So it's not like I made a ton of money at them. But now I still have a few sitting in the closet back in the office, and I'll send them out as gifts from time to time.
It's a good vibes book. It's easy enough that you could digest it in a half hour. So if you're ever feeling down on yourself, it's a good little pick me up. And if you're a DJ's Vault member, I believe that's in there for free.
It might be. Last year when we went into shutdown, I released a PDF on social media, and I just put it out there for free. I said, look, this is my gift to you guys and gals. If you need a little quick pick me up, it's just, all the advice I can offer as far as, trying to focus on your fitness, focus on your mental health, focus on your relationship. As Alex says, one of the tips is have sex, because, intimacy is something you shouldn't lose in a relationship.
That's healthy. Endorphins.
Exactly. Yeah.
So at the end of a long day, if you've had a rough day, what's your go-to beverage?
I don't know that I have a go-to. I mean, Kelly and I have gotten into bourbons a lot lately. We were in Kentucky 4 years ago, I think it was, and we did a couple bourbon tastings, and we both kind of developed a good taste for bourbon. So we probably, as far as our bar upstairs, it's stocked more with bourbons than any other type of alcohol. But Kelly loves gin. So sometimes she'll do a gin and I'll do a bourbon, or we'll both do a gin. But I also love wine. It's funny when you said, would you say bourbon in the winter and tequila in the summer? My thought was I'm the same way with wine. I'm a red wine drinker in the winter. And usually by the time summer rolls around, I'm having a lot lighter fare as far as food goes. So I tend to pair it with a white wine as opposed to a red wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I saw,
but when I come home from a gig, I mean, I'll mix myself a drink. Sometimes I'll open a beer. I also like a port, and like a heavier dessert wine I enjoy sometimes.
Yeah. And I saw that your mother has fantastic taste. Did she get you
Blanton? God, my mom got me a Blanton's. I couldn't believe it. She gave that to me for Christmas. And that's not my mom's true. My mom's not a bourbon drinker at all. But yeah, she said, I understand you like bourbon. So here I asked the guy at the liquor store, what's a good one? And yeah, that is a good bourbon. I told, because we make old fashions sometimes. So I pointed that out to Kelly and I said, we do not make old fashions with this. This is simply for sipping. That's too good a bourbon to mix with anything, Yeah,
that's big ups to your mom. I know that's all of those Buffalo Trace bourbons are allocated, which means extremely in rare supply, and bourbon is the big trend right now. I
know you're not supposed to do this with a gift, but I looked up how much that bottle, and I was like, wow, my mom loves me. I didn't know my mom loved me that much. That's an expensive bottle of bourbon.
Unless you find it at a retailer at retail, which is, tough to do. That's going to be a probably $250, $300 bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it looked like. Yeah.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Amen. Thanks, Mom.
So I want to go a little bit more into your biggest book, and the book that I think you probably are the most proud of, On This Date in Music.
I definitely am. I'm extremely proud of that book. To this day, someone will text me and say, I love today's excerpt. And now I'm listening to, the Doors all day, or I'm listening to the Beatles all day, or I'm listening to the Bee Gees, or I went back and watched this video. So people are reading it exactly how I intended it. One excerpt a day, which is a 5 to 10 minute read a day. And then hopefully you take some time to listen to the song or album that's been talked about.
Very cool. I'm going to take a pause here. Let's move on to Reposado. Let's start off with the, this is actually another pretty expensive bottle, not crazy expensive, but the Jose Cuervo Reserva de la Familia. So Cuervo is very much known for their cheap swill tequilas, and this is the opposite. They do.
I don't see a Jose Cuervo here.
Do you see a Reserva de la Familia?
Reserva Reposta.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Oh, that's it.
Reserva Reposado. It's
This is a Cuervo, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say my introduction to tequila back in the day was Cuervo Gold, and you had to do the lemon and salt.
Yeah.
Because it was so bitter that you basically shot it. What did you used to do? The salt, shoot it, and then the lemon, right? Or lime.
Yep.
Yeah, because it was so bitter.
That's the
and it wasn't until years and years later that I had a quality tequila, and I was like, oh wait, there's a difference here. You don't have to shoot this and then chase it with something.
Yeah, and so the cheaper tequilas, or the mass-produced tequilas, pretty solid.
This is solid, but yes, it definitely reminds me of that Cuervo taste.
Yeah, it definitely has it a little bit. So the reposado,
It doesn't have the bitterness, but yeah, it does.
yeah, the reposados are aged just a little bit, 3 months or so, 3 months up to a year. And they're aged in bourbon barrels usually, or unaged oak barrels. But yeah, tequila, man, like everybody, I feel like tequila, at least when you're in your 20s or before like the resurgence of craft tequilas, I guess you would say, or well-made tequilas, they were kind of that drink you just had and just almost like mock yourself, like to punish yourself. Like
Right.
I'm gonna
Right.
buy shots to punish my friends.
Yeah, I didn't know whether it was an age thing or whether the whole craft tequila thing is just new now. Like when I was drinking tequila back in the 90s, were there Patrons and other like super quality tequilas out that I just wasn't aware of?
There were, but not so. Patron, I don't know when Patron came to. I think that was mid 2000s.
Okay.
But all of these distilleries existed in Mexico, and they were enjoyed and celebrated, I guess you could say, in Mexico, the tequila region, which is actually Tequila, Mexico, or Jalisco, Mexico, Jalisco. Pardon me, I'm white. I'm a gringo here. So they all existed, but they just weren't as, I guess you could say, distributed.
Right.
So yeah, that's a big difference, is just the distribution to the United States, and that probably has a lot to do with the internet and just people, the tighter woven communities.
Right. Yeah, and then word gets around, you know.
So On the State and Music started as at least a series of Facebook posts, but it had to start with one Facebook post. And when you made that post, did you have the idea that you were going to make a book out of this? What was?
Not at all. No. One of the earliest ones, I don't know if this was the first one, but one of the earliest ones that I woke up one morning and I read that it was I don't know, maybe the 40th anniversary of the movie Grease being released. And so I just put up a post about, happy anniversary, Grease. If you love the movie, you probably love this music. And I might have told like one or two quick behind the scenes stories from the movie. And that got some traction, and people were like, oh, that was interesting. That was fun. And, I went back and listened to the soundtrack, and I don't even think it was the next day. It was maybe a couple days later that I told another story. And then I started going, this would be cool to do this every day on Facebook. And the main reason I thought about it was I like to look back on, Facebook has their memories thing every day. So I usually spend 10 minutes every morning looking at what did I do a year ago today? What did I do 2 years ago today, 3 years ago, and all the way back. And I just thought, well, this would be fun. If I put up a post every day for a year, then I'll always have something to look back on musically. Every day of the year, I'll be able to look back in my own personal memories. But very quickly, it took on legs of its own, where people were like, you got to keep this going. I want to read this every morning. And then it just became an obsession. And I just started and the post started getting a little bit longer and a little bit longer and more in depth and more research. And it was a crazy, basically year and a half of writing all those things and putting them out. And then very soon into putting them on Facebook, I realized this is going to be a book. I can compartmentalize these and put them all into a book.
Yeah. No, it's that whole year when you were doing it. I very much look forward to every day reading that excerpt. And then they were always great.
Thank you.
The book that I own is great. And now, did you self-publish that, or did you shop?
I did. I shopped it. I actually went back to my original agent who had tried to rep The Edge. And he said, you know what, Mike, it sounds like a good idea. It's not my cup of tea. He said, I like novels. And he even said to me, it was 30 years after the fact. He's like, if you ever write another novel, I'd love to read it, but it's just not my kind of book. And so I shopped it to a number of different publishing houses that I thought would be interested in it, but couldn't find a buyer. So I ultimately self-published.
So the self-publishing process, is that easy, expensive?
It's not expensive at all. It's fairly easy. I mean, you basically have to upload your document to, there's a number of different services you can use. I went with CreateSpace because they're owned by Amazon. And I just thought, if anyone's going to, I'm going to sell most of my books on Amazon. So if they're going to push any book, it's going to be something that they're making more money off of. And I thought their interface was really easy. I took my Word document, I uploaded it. I had to do some formatting and fixing. I had a very good friend of mine design the cover, which I will always give him so much credit for. My friend Steve Adio who is a graphic designer, graphic artist, and an incredible artist. I pitched him the idea, and I had a few visuals that I could think of as the cover. And so he gave me a few mock-ups of the suggestions that I had made. But then he also said, I hope you don't mind. I came up with a few of my own. Tell me what you think of these. And one of them was that vinyl cover, just a picture of the, vinyl record with, instead of a record label, the title of the book. And I said, Steve, you nailed it. I said, don't even look, throw everything else out. Let's focus on that. And we played around with the color of the label and everything else. But that was to me, I don't know how I missed it. I don't know why I didn't think about that as a book cover, but Steve just nailed it with that.
Yeah, it's an absolutely beautiful cover. And the entire book is actually very beautiful. Great
Thank you.
Table book. Good. It's actually right in my living room and on our bookshelf out there. So it's one of my vanity books, I guess you could say.
Thank you.
Like 5 or 6 books out there. So very, very cool. And any other books in the future? Working on anything else, like as far as written?
I'm really disappointed. I came up with an idea for a novel recently, and then Kelly and I were having lunch with some friends, and I brought it up, and the guy went, I'm pretty sure somebody wrote a book like that already. And I researched it, and it did. I had this idea of a $20 bill that, you think about any currency, how often it gets passed around to person and goes into this cash register and given to this. And I had an idea of just following the life of a $20 bill, from the very first person who gets it crisp and brand new to who, how long he holds it, to who he spends it on, who he gives it to, and where it goes. And I just thought it would be really a great way to tell like a bunch of different short stories. But yeah, sure enough, somebody actually wrote a book like that. So I was kind of bummed because I'd written about I don't know, maybe 50 pages already. And then I was like, somebody did it already. But yeah, I don't know. I'll come up with something someday, maybe. Like I said, maybe in retirement or semi-retirement.
Well, and that would be more of a novel form too, right?
That was a pure fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. I have a very difficult time reading fiction books. I would love to. I could really only read like business books, factual books, motivational books, things like that.
Do you like movies?
I do. I love movies.
Yeah. I love movies and I love fiction. It's got to be good fiction. It's got to hook me in. But I mean, sometimes Kelly actually gets annoyed. Like if I'm reading a good book, I don't want to put it down. And, she'll be like, come on, we got to leave for dinner. And I'm like, I got 5 pages left. I want to. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. If I get into a good book, I can't put it down.
And I love books because, at least the idea of books, because you can paint your own picture. You're not being spoon-fed a picture, a visual, right, a script. You're able to kind of use your imagination and come up with your own identity for the character. Yeah, there have been plenty of books that I've read that have become movies, and I've loved the book, and then I watch the movie and I go, this isn't how I visualize it. That's not, I didn't picture him looking like that. I didn't picture their house looking like that. I didn't, you know what I mean? So yeah, and that's one of the things I think I like about a good novel is you can lose yourself in it and it becomes your own world, Yeah. So let's pour the next one. This one is one of my personal favorites. It's not expensive. It's easy to find, but it's a true representative of what a reposado should be. You get really, really good spicy notes with just a little title. Oh, is this it's the El Tesoro reposado. El Tesoro. Yep. So now tell me, why is that last one had a little coloring to it, and then this one is crystal clear again? So it's probably the barrels that they're aging in. Is that what provides the coloring? Yep. Yeah, that's why the Blancos are white and the Reposados are just a little bit darker. I'm not 100% sure why the Cuervo is very dark for a Reposado. Okay. This is the El Tesoro. It's spicy. That's nice. Yeah. So do you keep track of how many weddings you've DJ'd in your career? I do. What number are we at? Well, I should say I do every January 1st. I'm a big numbers guy. And so every year at the end of the year, I add up what I did, how many did I do last year, and then add it together for my career total. And I just passed 2,400 weddings.
So I'm probably closing in on 2,500.
Okay.
Yeah. That's weddings.
Yep.
I'm well over 3,000 events, but that's weddings.
So doing my research on Elite Entertainment before we had this chat, I of course Googled Elite Entertainment, and I love the expert on excerpt from your website. What was it? Tens of thousands of weddings. I don't 100% remember. Did you write that yourself? Was that you?
I'm sure I did. Yeah, I don't know exactly, but anything on our website, I'm sure I wrote.
Yeah, no, it's very, very well written. I was like, that's so cool. Because that is one thing. That's your strength. That's, I mean, you guys have power in numbers.
You know, Alex, it is, but you also, and this has been pointed out to me by numerous people, you don't want to sell experience too much in this industry, because then people can do the math and figure out how old you are. And I would just as soon my brides not know that I'm 54 years old. So, and I've been fortunate. I've been able to keep the hair, and it's no plants, and I don't dye my hair. And I don't say that to you as a bald man, because you pull off bald very well. But I've been lucky that I've kept the hair, and the hair isn't gray. I mean, there is some gray in it, but I don't know what it is. I've got just a freak of DNA that I was able to hold on to this. So if brides think that I'm a decade younger than I am, I would never lie to them. If somebody asked me how old I am, I would tell them, but I do everything I can to mask that. So you won't see on the website, Mike's been DJing for 32 years, because then people can go, okay, well, he's got to be at least 50, right? So at this point, I really just say I have decades of experience. Okay. That's vague enough to let people know I've got a lot of experience, but I'd rather you not know how old I am.
Now, do you feel like you've ever lost an event or a wedding because of your age?
Yes, but fortunately, it usually goes to somebody younger on my staff.
Okay.
So Elite didn't necessarily lose it, but I have no doubt. And listen, we all lose and also gain events based on a number of different, demographics and physical, and you've lost events because you're too short. And you've gained events because you're in great shape. I'm sure that there are some brides who go, yeah, we want the guy who's in great shape, and some brides have gone, I was looking for a taller guy, or I was, what I mean? So, and they won't tell you that. No one's ever going to say to you, Alex, I didn't book you because you're not tall enough, or Mike, I didn't book you because you're too old. They're not going to tell you, but we'd be denying the truth if we thought that those things didn't happen.
I agree. And I think probably a lot of that is even subconscious. Like they probably couldn't point that out to you.
You know what? Great point. Absolutely. They wouldn't tell you because maybe they don't even know. Yeah. I remember a number of years ago, we had a guy on staff who he came to us from Kansas, big, stocky. He played college football, 6'2", blonde hair, great looking guy. And unfortunately, he had a family emergency back in Kansas, and he had to move back to Kansas. So he left me with about a dozen weddings that I had to reassign. And I called every one of those brides, and they were all, oh, we were really hoping we would have him, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what is it you loved about him? Because I'll help you find somebody else on staff. And none of them could really voice it. And it's because whether it was conscious or subconscious, they had the hots for the guy. And not that they were going to cheat on him on their wedding day or anything, but they thought the guy that he ticked off a bunch of their boxes. And so, yeah, I mean, we are in an aesthetic business. And if any DJ wants to deny that, they're lying to themselves.
Well, and that's actually one of the things that I picked up from your DJ, like training, or not training your next great DJ. What is it? Running your multi.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that. That was in your hiring section. You said, I tend to hire more attractive people because you're magnetized them to. You can't explain it. You want to work with
exactly. Them. Yeah. You sit down and watch TV someday, watch, 3 hours of TV, and then tell me how many ugly people you saw, and even how many mediocre looking people you saw. Zero. Yep. That it's show business. It's entertainment. We are judged against the best looking people. And so you have to think about that. And I'm not trying to claim that I'm any kind of Adonis or great looking guy, but I do my best to keep myself in shape and to keep myself looking as youthful as possible, and also acting as youthful as possible. And the DJs who I am connected with who don't do those things, I wonder why they're not. And then when they're complaining about lack of work, I think to myself, well, maybe you should look in the mirror. Maybe that's why. Well, everyone's undercutting me. Well, maybe it's not that.
Yeah, it's your visual. That's your visual brand. and
exactly
how you carry yourself, how you take care of yourself, what shape you're in, how you dress, that all matters.
Yeah.
So you don't have
By the way, can we tell the story about what you said to me in Tampa?
So this was DJ Collective number 2.
Yeah. It was my first collective.
Okay.
I didn't go to number 1. I wasn't invited. I wasn't one of the cool kids, but I got invited to 2. And it was in this boutique hotel in Tampa. And it was the second or third day. And I got on the elevator early in the morning to go for a run. And Alex got on the elevator too. So I said, Alex, come for a run with me. And you said, if I remember correctly, you said, no, I have an Uber showing up to take me to a gym. And I knew that there was a gym in the hotel. And I'm like, Alex, there's a gym in this hotel. And you said to me, yeah, but it doesn't have enough weights. I'll never forget that. I'm like, God damn, my man lifts a lot of weights. If the hotel gym doesn't have enough weights, I'll never forget that.
That's a great story. And I love hearing it. It definitely inflates my ego. So I feel good hearing it, but it's more of a case of just like, they've got like these little 40-pound weights. You can't just, I don't know. I could spend 2 hours in there and get some kind of exhaustion or fatigue in my muscles, but
right.
I could go to a real gym and do 45 minutes of
and it was worth it for you to find a different gym and take an Uber to it, which I think is great. And it shows. And again, I was heading out for my run, which is my preference of that's how I wanted to get my day started. And you wanted to get your day started by lifting more iron than was available in the hotel.
Well, and I did a solo podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I just said straight up, I was like, I think everybody should work out, everybody should get some sort of sweat in, but I'm not here to tell you that lifting weights is the best way to do that. It's just a way that I prefer to do it, something I enjoy. So I'm more prone to do something I enjoy. And you're never going to have something that's sustainable in terms of fitness if you don't enjoy it.
I agree. And like I said, that's the reason I run. It's the only thing I really enjoy doing. I have weights over here next to me, and I have a Life Cycle, which I get on because I have to. And I know that that's what I got to do to keep myself in quote unquote shape. But yeah, if I had my druthers and my knees and ankles could handle it, I would run 8 miles a day every day.
And I kind of want to get more into other DJs and their appearance and things like that, because there are a lot of DJs out there, especially in the community that we're in. And we're so well networked that, yeah, it's sad to see, you've got somebody in a suit that doesn't fit them right. It's like, they've got 5 o'clock shadows. They kind of just are not taking care of themselves. You don't have to be beautiful naturally. You don't have to be Marcello, pardon me.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. You can, as long as you take care of yourself and the package that you've been given, and your genetics, yeah, you're going to do fine. But
yeah. And it's just, it's one of the things that I'm really surprised some people in our industry, and some people do, some people focus on it and realize it's part of their brand and realize they, if you want to keep yourself relevant and getting booked as much as possible, that's one thing you could control. There's a lot of things we can't control, but that's one thing you can control. And the people who don't put any emphasis on that, I just go, I don't know, you're missing out, dude.
And I get even a little bit more of a dick. Like, I think it kind of shows lack of personal discipline, which could carry over to how you conduct your business as well.
I think there's a legitimate point to be made about that. I think the same thing when I see a smoker sometimes, and I try not to judge people. But man, when I see somebody sucking away on a cigarette, I'm like, really, man, and believe me, I smoked as a kid and a teenager, even into my early 20s, I smoked cigarettes. It was peer pressure. It was a cool thing. But once I got old enough to realize, yeah, this thing is killing me. It's making me smell horrible, and it's costing me a lot of money. Why am I doing this? And that was, I didn't need any patch or hypnosis. I just literally I woke up one morning and I was like, why am I smoking? And I threw a pack of cigarettes away.
So have you ever had a period where you've let yourself go?
Oh yeah. Physically. Absolutely. And again, this is the 90s. I was out of shape. I did not focus on my fitness throughout the 90s. Now I was in my 30s, so you can get away with a lot more. And I remember reading a quote, and I don't know if I've ever confirmed that it was Woody Allen, because it doesn't seem like a Woody Allen quote, but I thought I remembered reading that Woody Allen said, the shape you're in at 40 is the shape you're going to be in the rest of your life. And it's obviously not 100% true, because you can change at any point. But I think there is some truth to that by the time you hit 40, you've established your habits and your discipline and everything else. And I was approaching 40 at the time, and I was probably 40 pounds overweight and not active at all. And I just said, let's live by that quote and get yourself in shape. And I ran my first marathon when I was 39, and I ran my second marathon just after I turned 40. And I haven't looked back. The last 15 years, I've been in much better shape than I was the previous 15 years.
Very nice. Yeah.
But yeah, there are pictures of me in my 30s from the 90s where I'm like, ooh, don't let that float around too much unless it's the before picture.
We're going to move on to the extra anejos. I actually skipped anejos. So anejos are aged 3 months to, I believe, actually, no, 1 year to 3 years.
All right. So tell me which one I'm going
the
for
extra
here.
anejos, your first one you want to do is the Tapiato
Got it.
Excelencia.
Got it.
Pardon me.
Now we're back to a darker color here. And I guess what would you call it? Amber?
So these are aged. They're smoother. They're meant to be sipped neat or over a cube.
Do you know what kind of aging we're talking about? How long is this thing sitting in a barrel?
We are talking about 1 year to 3 year for regular anejo. Extra anejo, which is the two that are here, are 3+ years. So there's no.
Isn't that great dedication when you think about it? Like the people who make that tequila, think about putting a product in a barrel and then going, I'll see you 3 years from now. You know, there's some dedication involved there.
Think about some of the scotches and bourbons that are,
15, 20 years. I know, right? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So these are just a little bit smoother. You still get the agave taste in there.
That is nice. Yeah. It's not nearly as sweet though as some of the earlier ones, right?
So some of them actually can get sweeter just from the barrel and the caramelizing.
Okay.
This one isn't overly sweet. And I want to tell you a story about how I let myself go, because it actually just popped in my head. I haven't told it in forever. So I was just out of college and I was DJing and kind of doing the circuit and everything. And I had youth on my side, but I was 5'5", as I still am. And I was 220 pounds. No muscle.
And that's not 220 pounds of muscle. That was overweight.
I did not know what the gym was. I had little stick arms. Yeah, man, I look terrible.
I could not picture you that way, knowing you as I do now, but okay, I'll accept it.
So I was hooking up with a girl and she was playing with my man boobs while I was hooking up with her.
That's a great story, Alex.
Flopping them.
Oh my God.
I don't think she had any harm whatsoever. It's a nice, sweet girl.
Right.
Yeah, kind of playing with them. I'm like, I'm a fat fuck. I got to take care of this. So yeah, that was.
And that was your come to Jesus moment.
Yeah. Now I've had moments where, I've kind of fluctuated a little bit, but I've stayed pretty steady for the last, probably 20 years now.
That's great. That is a great story. Yeah. And you know what? I dated a girl years ago who worked at one of the diet places, the Jenny Craig or something like that. And one of the questions they always asked people when they came in was, what was your motivating factor? What brought you in today? And more than half of the people said, I saw a photo of myself.
Yeah.
And that can be it sometimes. So because you don't look at yourself in the mirror fairly and everything else. And then one day you look at a picture and you go, who the fuck is that fat fuck? And then you go, that's me. And you realize, or you have a chick playing with your man boobs. That's a great story.
Yeah, dude, it is. And she was cute too. But yeah, so that was what started it for me.
That was not the future Mrs. Nepa, huh?
No, she did not exist, although close enough. I feel like I'm like you and Kelly. I've got the mother of my daughter. We live together. We've been together for probably 10+ years on and off. And yeah, that's.
Oh, so you're not, I didn't know that. You're not married?
No.
Oh, God bless. But you live with your baby mama.
Yep. Yeah. It's basically a family. It's your family.
And there's been no pressure from her.
Not a lot. Now she's
okay.
Or above us here, and if she,
I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, so I'm sorry if I'm getting personal here, but we're also 5 tequilas in, so this is your fucking fault.
No, so yeah, I mean, I'm not ashamed to say it. The marriage thing will happen soon. I don't know whether I don't know whether it's something about our industry or that I've done so many weddings, that I'm a little bit hesitant about it. I'd probably have to talk to my therapist. Have you ever seen a therapist, by the way?
I have, twice in my life. Okay. I've seen a therapist. Yeah. And both times I thought it was a very needed thing. And I didn't go for too long, but helped me through some 2 rough patches in my life. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah. I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. Are you currently seeing a therapist?
It's been about a year. So a year and a half.
Yeah.
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 I like the way.
Yeah, I think one of the good things is I don't think there's a stigma around it anymore, and there shouldn't be. I think for many years it was, oh my God, you're on therapy. What's wrong with you? But yeah, I think fortunately we've gotten rid of the stigma, and it's like any other doctor. You know, if your ankle hurts, you go to see a doctor about it. And if you're having it's just something that you want to talk about, or you're struggling through a difficult time, the therapy is the way to go.
Yeah, and they used to call them head shrinkers. So it's just like they're insulting them as what they call them. My grandfather would call them that. But I do really, really love the era that we're in and the consciousness for mental health. And they even have iPhone apps that can take the place of therapists if you're too busy or too ashamed to visit a therapist.
Right. Yeah, and listen, there's not a lot of great things that are going to come out of COVID, but the whole introduction of Zoom and video conferencing, or not introduction, but it's broadened throughout society. I know a lot of people that go to therapy this way, and yeah, it might be easier than showing up at a therapist's office. It's funny, our office at Elite Entertainment, there's a therapist right next door to us. And when I say funny, he does a lot of marriage counseling. So it's kind of funny, like get here now, and then 10 years from now, you'll be over there. But I mean, I see some people, and it breaks my heart sometimes when I see couples leaving his office, and because I overlook the parking lot, and sometimes they'll be in tears, and they leave in separate cars, and you can tell they're going through probably a nasty separation and ultimately a divorce. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with admitting it, and it can get you healthier. And like I said, I've been in therapy twice in my life, and both times have helped me.
So New Jersey was shut down pretty bad because of COVID, correct?
Yeah.
How did that affect you? I mean, it's got to be I mean, I can relate. I was 100% crazy to think about a complete shutdown of our business for close to a year.
I've gone through the last 12 months with a lot of mixed emotions. I lost my dad to COVID in May. So I know how dangerous this virus is, and I know how serious we need to take it. But it's also shut down my business, and I'm eager to work, and I'm eager to get back to work and make a living. So for a year now, I've had this, mixed emotion of, yes, we need to protect ourselves and be safe and everything else, but also I want to get back to work. So yeah, let's put it this way. I'm glad I'm not the one that has to make the decisions. When I see the decisions that Trump had to make, and governors had to make, and Biden has to make, and I just look at that and I go, I'm just glad I'm not the one, because no matter what you decide, some people are going to hate it, some people are going to love it. It's going to be right, it's going to be wrong, it's going to be proven right, it's going to be proven wrong. There's just no way to really get through this, because there's no template. I mean, the last time we had something like this was 100 years ago, and we didn't have the science or the technology we had then. So this is all new. Society's never been through anything like this.
And even though it's insane how fast they came out with not just one, but 3 or 4 vaccines.
Yeah. What is your stance on that?
I am half vaccinated. So
okay. Congratulations.
Very proudly half vaccinated.
I am fully vaccinated, which is something I didn't put on social media. So I guess now the world will know when you release this video, but I was afraid that people would say, well, how come you deserve to get vaccinated? So I didn't put it out there, but I am completely pro-vaccination. I believe in the science. I don't think Bill Gates has a chip in my arm. And I think that the quickest way through this virus is for as many Americans as possible to get vaccinated. So when it's your turn and you can get one, please get one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel guilty about it whatsoever. I think we're heading into a very, very busy event season. Which we're blessed for, thank God. And again, I want to keep myself healthy. I want to keep my family healthy. I want to keep those around me healthy. But I see the rollout and how fast it's moving now. So even if I'm ahead of somebody, like I went to CVS and got vaccinated, and there was probably 50 people in line. It still only took me 25 minutes, and 15 of those minutes were actually waiting afterward. So it was.
I read that yesterday at Dodger Stadium, they actually closed early because they didn't have enough people. They had more vaccines, and the line was closed. Like more people could have gotten vaccinated in LA yesterday than did because they just didn't show up. So, I mean, I think we're getting to the point now where, yeah, if you want to get vaccinated, just sit on the internet and make a reservation. You'll get it.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do. Yeah, CVS was a very good. I would not have thought that was going to be where I'd go. Thought I'd be going to a hospital, but hey, whatever, I got it. So I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. I'm glad you did. I hope as many people as possible do.
Yeah, same, man. Hopefully. I mean, that's the only way we're going to get back to being normal. So
and I've done a few events now where I'm fully vaccinated, and I just have a little bit more confidence because, I mean, when you're rocking a gig and people are coming up to you and giving you requests, and even if you're wearing your mask, they're not. And, I've basically taken a COVID test after every single event I've done. And now the last handful, I'm like, well, I guess I don't need to. I'm vaccinated now. So I feel a lot safer.
So I always thought before the vaccines were out, I wish that the COVID tests were easier and more rapid to get. I feel like the government, I'm just going to say straight up, the Trump administration failed in that regard, and the local state government. I had 6 COVID tests, and I had to go to different places. And sometimes I've even had to lie and say, I feel like I've had the symptoms. I don't know if you've had to do that, but just to make sure we're in the clear.
I never said I had a symptom, but one of the questions they asked was, have you been in an environment where you feel you might have been exposed? And I always said yes, because who could know at an event? I mean, there's 150 people at a wedding or 100 people at a wedding. And yeah, is there a chance 1 or 2 of these people have it and they're coming up to me asking for requests? Absolutely. So I didn't even feel like I was lying by saying yes to that question.
Yeah. And there's no shame in it. You're only protecting your clients.
Right.
Yourself, yeah.
And you're right. Rapid testing, I don't know who to blame for why we don't have it, but I mean, I was going to CVS for most of my tests, and I would get tested on a Wednesday and I would know by Friday. Okay. Now, the problem is, in that 48 hours, how many people was I in contact with that I shouldn't have been if I ever tested positive? Knock wood, I never tested positive. But yeah, I mean, the only way to really, really quarantine people is to know right away, rapid testing. You test positive, you can't see anybody. Shut them down, Yeah. Are we moving on to number 6?
All right, we're going to go Tears of Lorena. This is the, maybe you want to do a full pour of this, because this is actually, we're going to be trying this for the first time together. I've never had it.
Is this the $250 one or whatever you said?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Alex, thank you. I can't believe you.
Oh, and I wish I could share the whole thing with you. And again, I would get nothing done tomorrow.
Tomorrow is actually my day off. Tuesday is my day out of the office. And I'm going car shopping, vehicle shopping.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the one of the different Jeep models.
Okay.
Either a Grand Cherokee or Cherokee, one of those.
Are you a Jeep guy? Is this a new?
Kelly and I have a Jeep Wrangler, but I've been a Tucson guy for a while, a Hyundai Tucson guy. I've had 2 in a row, but I feel like I need a little bit more space. And I did have a Jeep many, many years ago. Hang on, let me enjoy this $250.
Very complex. I don't know if I'd be able to say that's a tequila.
More spice than I expected. It's smooth, but it does have more spice than I expected.
Yeah, that's the agave.
Yeah.
So agave has that peppery kind of spice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So lost my train.
I like it.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Yeah.
Did you have any I forget where I want to go. I might actually cut this out here for a second. Give me a second to compose myself.
No, don't cut anything out. Just this is a conversation, Alex. Honestly, I've watched a few of your interviews, your podcast, and I do like your style. You and I think it's the difference between I'm a New Yorker, I'm an East Coast guy. To me, everything, and I think I make this mistake on Joe and my podcast. Sometimes I rush things along. We got to get to the point. We got to finish this. And I've liked listening to your podcast because you don't seem like you're in any hurry. And I think very similar to Howard Stern, that will probably get people to admit more than they probably want to, just because you're just very laid back. So I wouldn't change your style at all.
Thank you. I think the style and the drinks might help people too.
That might be, and the fact that you want to record this late at night. I mean, I was glad you moved me up an hour. At first you wanted to start at 10 and I was like, damn, Alex, that's late. You're a young guy, but for somebody like me, that's late. So now it's 10:23 and I'm 7 tequila sips into this. And yeah, you could probably get me to admit to a lot.
Yeah. So what has been your probably, have you ever had like, I don't want to say worst event, because we've all had bad events and like they're not even really a story or anything. But what has been like some of like one of the most insane things, just like maybe it would shock the DJ community that has happened at one of your weddings or events?
One of the things that stands out to me, and I actually apologize to the guests about this. I did a wedding years ago for a very young bride and groom. I think they were both 20. And their wedding song was Closer by Nine Inch Nails. And they wanted it to be the unedited version. And I tried to talk them out of that in the meeting. And they were like, nope, this is it. And I said, are you sure? I'm sure you're going to have older guests that are going to be offended by, I want to fuck you like an animal. And they said, nope, we want this. And that was a weird moment for me. I remember introducing it and saying, I don't remember their names. So I said their first names, but I said, the bride and groom have chosen this song specifically because it's perfect for them. And they specifically wanted the unedited version. So I hope you're not going to be offended by what you hear. And here is Closer. So I basically let everybody know in the room, this is, not my choice. It's their choice. And I remember at that wedding, the groom's brother was the best man. And when he got up to speak, he said, I know a lot of people say my brother's too young to get married. And he just let that hang there. And a bunch of people like shifted in their seats. I'm like, that was me. And I always wonder to this day, I wonder if that couple made it,
Have you ever done a wedding for the same person twice? So ever done a remarriage?
I have not personally, but we have in the company.
Okay.
We have had more than once. We've had a bride call us and say, you did my wedding 10 years ago. I loved your service. I'm getting remarried. I'd prefer not to have the original DJ because maybe he was bad luck, but we'd like to use your services again. So I personally have never done a second wedding. I did do a Sweet 16 and then her wedding situation many years ago. But I've never done the wedding of the same person twice.
Yeah. Interesting.
Have you?
Have I ever? No.
Have you had that opportunity?
I asked that question of a ton of DJs, and is common as divorces and remarriages. Never. No.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones was we had a contract break. A bride call us like 6 months before her wedding and say, I'm not getting married, blah, blah, blah. And in that situation, we'll say, well, look, if we rebook your date, we'll keep the deposit as a credit. Yep. If we don't rebook the date, you lose the deposit. And sure enough, we rebooked the date. So I sent her an email and I said, you now have that $500 deposit, whatever it is, as a credit. And then a couple years later, she called to say, hey, I'm getting married again and I'd like to get that credit. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And she goes, can you do me a favor though? Can you not tell my fiance? And I was like, sure, no problem. But I'm thinking to myself, why do you want to start your marriage with a big fat lie? Like what's wrong with telling somebody, hey, I was engaged prior to you. It didn't work out. And now I'm getting, I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. But I remember thinking to myself, that's not a healthy way to start a relationship.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shame in that. She was just engaged. The wedding didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I've actually been engaged before, and the wedding didn't happen. So
right, nothing to be ashamed about there.
Now, actually, so going back to the having done the same bride's wedding twice, I did do a very young, like 21, 22 couple's wedding about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and just a couple of weeks ago, I got an inquiry from the bride, and it's in recent enough memory that I remember her name. And I looked her up and I'm like, this is interesting. I looked her up on Instagram. It's a different guy. I'm like, this is very soon.
Yeah, but listen, my first marriage didn't last that long. So sometimes people, move on quickly. I don't think you can judge people for that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably judging a little bit.
Yeah. You seemed like you were judging.
Yeah, no, I definitely was.
Yeah.
No, I was judging from the start. I just didn't admit it. So that's all good.
But this one is growing on me. This is nice. I think that first sip, I got some spice notes that I wasn't expecting, but this one is really good.
Yeah, they sell mini bottles of it that are only like $100.
Okay.
So yeah, if you ever want to, I assume this bottle will probably last me 5 or 6 years. So all good.
Yeah, the Blanton's my mom bought is going to last a good long time. I'm hoping it lasts till Christmas, and then she gets me another one.
So I'm going to blow up, Jason Henniger from Richmond, Kentucky.
Yeah, Jason's my bourbon guy. Yeah, I've gone out to dinner with him a couple times, and I'm like, Jason, you order the bourbon. Yeah.
He sent me a Bland's, which he was
nice. Wow.
So Bland's at retail is just $50.
Okay.
Totally acceptable. So he got one, and I was actually in Pennsylvania. The New Jersey is like a mecca for booze. You could find whatever you want in New Jersey, but you're going to pay for it because they know supply and demand. In Pennsylvania, our alcohol supply is run by the state, which totally sucks. But when we can find something good, you get it at retail. They don't jack it up. It's not supply and demand.
Right.
So I was actually the same day that Jason sent me Bland's, I was at my liquor store doing a run, and they had Bland's. So $50. I now have two
nice
bottles of Bland's. Yeah. So I've got one.
Very cool.
Reserve. Yeah. But as we close out here, Mike, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on, Alex. I enjoyed this. I was looking forward to this, and I couldn't believe you sent me a care package with so much tequila. And I have plenty left over, so I will enjoy this. So tomorrow and the next day.
Do a comparison after this. Now, just keep in mind it's chemically altered, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
The Costco tequila, what we call Costco Migos.
Okay, this last one in here.
It's a knockoff of Casamigos.
Okay.
It does very, very much taste like a high-end tequila.
I'll tell you what, they make a bourbon that Kelly's mom got for us, and I would put it on par with a Bullet.
Okay.
It's not the best bourbon you've ever had, but it's not the worst bourbon I've ever had either.
Great
so
mixer.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. To me, there's a big difference. If you're going to make a mixed drink out of it, then you don't need it to be the most unbelievable bourbon. If you're just going to sip it, especially without an ice cube, then it's got to be pretty good quality.
So if you were at a bar right now, crowded bar, live music going, what would you order?
If they're making mixed drinks, probably an old fashioned with Bullet. I'd probably order a Bullet old fashioned.
Very cool. I might send you an old fashioned just for the hell of it.
You don't need to send me any more. Matter of fact, I'm going to send you. Kelly and I, when we were in Mexico, we were in Cabo a couple years ago, and we did a tequila tasting, and we got this one tequila that we love, and I order it from time to time. I think it's like $80 a bottle. I can't find it locally, so I order it off of this website and have it shipped. So I'm gonna ship you that because I want to repay you for all this, and I want you to try that and tell me where you would rank it. I rank it as one of the best tequilas I've ever had, but it sounds like you've had a lot more than I have, so I'd like you to rank that.
Now, is this a surprise, or do you care to share?
I don't know the name of it. The only thing I know about it is it comes in this bottle that's like kind of twisted. So it's like the bottle is turned.
Okay.
So it's a unique bottle, but, and I found it on this website, and every time I go to the website, it's like, do you want to reorder this? And I'm like, yes. So that's why I don't know the name.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Mike. Appreciate you. Keep stirring shit. Keep doing you. Keep being.
Well, I hope to see you soon. I hope to share an elevator with you soon, where you're going to lift weights and I'm going for a run. That's when I know the world will have returned to normal.
Everything will feel great, man. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Cheers, my friend.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Dude, this is a pleasure. It really was. I look forward to it.